Welcome, everybody, here to Basketball Passport. I'm Anthony Irwin, your host on Sunday nights, joined, as always, by Leigh Ellis. Leigh, I know that was the intro clip for Thursday's show, but crazy enough, that was actually identical to the scene in Denver when Nikola Jokic returned to the basketball court. It was the exact same scene. How you holding up?
Yeah, it's good to have him back. Although maybe not for you. His timing wasn't great. But that was from the Belgrade derby a couple of years ago. But they did have the first one in the Euro League on Thursday in the Belgrade Arena, which is where that clip is from.
So Sunday nights, we stay more local. We take you guys around the headlines and storylines of the NBA that catch our attention over the course of the week. And then, as you all know by this point, on Thursdays, though this week is going to be potentially a little bit different with Thanksgiving being Thursday, but Thursdays, that's when Leigh takes us on his travels around the world through that pickup basketball tour. I am Anthony Irwin. Like I said earlier, please do hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcast. If you guys are listening in the morning, preferably at Odyssey, because we are company men. And please do hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. If you guys are watching live right now, if you guys are watching on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@basketballpassport, where you could find the channel there. And then again, hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of these shows when we go live Sunday and Thursday nights. Let's start, though, Leigh, with the Clippers, who going into the season, there was a lot of concern over they lost Paul George. They weren't going to have Kawhi Leonard for a while. They, just looked like the end of the 2-1-3 era. And they just kind of, it appeared we're going to exit stage left. But so far, they're kind of staying afloat. How? Well, how are they doing that?
Less is more sometimes, I wonder, with a guy like James Harden, like he's basically had his best moments of his career when he's just been surrounded by role players. And I think that's kind of what's happening right now with Clippers. I mean, Norm Powell is out at the moment, but when he was there, he was playing really well. But, classic sort of guy, just get out there, run to the corners, he'll find you and hit those threes. But also, I think there's a couple of other factors. I think one, I rate Ty Lue very highly as a coach. I think he's a very smart coach, and he tends to always get a lot out of his players. Hasn't always worked in the playoffs, but he just feels like he's the sort of guy who never makes an excuse. He just goes out there and gets the best out of his team. And they're playing really good defense right now. I think that's where, they're sort of making up for a little bit of their lack of offense somewhat by just making sure they hold teams pretty tight. They're going to win their fifth in a row here tonight. It's in Philadelphia, so maybe that one doesn't necessarily count as too impressive a victory, but they're 11. They're going to be 11-7 and just in a really good spot. And it's funny because I wrote the Clippers off at the start of the season. I just thought, Paul George is gone. Kawhi we knew was in trouble, and I was like, you're not relying on James Harden, surely. But he seems to be sort of almost more. There's no pressure on him right now. It feels like everyone's kind of dismissed the Clippers and written them off, and maybe that's working to his advantage.
Yeah, I don't know if I would consider them like an actual contender this year. You just can't, because it's impossible to rely on Kawhi Leonard to be healthy or consider him a candidate to be healthy at the end of the season. But it still can be a cool story to watch them. It is funny, like you're saying that they're going to pick up their fifth straight win tonight. Yes, it isn't that impressive because they're playing Philadelphia. Oh yeah, that happens to be Paul George's new team.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not like it. The unimpressive win that they're picking up is the team that the guy that we thought was going to really hurt them in his departure. That's his new squad, and they've been a complete mess, as we talked about earlier this last week. The thing that I really want to hammer home here is the value of roster depth and organizational depth. Like the way that the Clippers are run, Steve Ballmer invests every penny that he sees fit. You never have to worry if you're a Clippers fan, whether or not he is, focused on going out and getting the best talent, keeping the best talent, doing everything in his power to put his team in the best possible situations to win and to succeed. And that's how you can stay afloat when you don't have Kawhi. You can, you look at their roster, it's like, it's still 10, 11, 12 legit NBA players. I can tell you, covering the Lakers, they might have like 7,
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's that organizational depth, that roster depth, that depth of talent is how you stay afloat as in the way that they have. And I would love to, maybe I'll ask around, with some of my Clippers fan friends, how much fun they're having now compared to during the 2-1-3 era.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it comes back to expectation. That when Paul George and Kawhi Leonard especially signed there, I remember I tipped them to win the championship at least one season, maybe 2. And it was because like they've got these guys who can defend so well on the perimeter. And then on the offensive end, they've both got enough to go out there and make it very, very tough. But the one thing that never really happened there, it never felt like they were super close ever
Yeah.
in terms of that locker room. It always felt like I'm the star really of this team and he's second to me. Like they were both sort of thinking that the other one was the Robin to their Batman. And I think that played out. I mean, again, I know it's a long time ago and you can sort of twist things however you want after they've happened. But I remember when they lost to the Nuggets in the bubble there, that 3-1 lead. And I remember Kawhi walking off the court and it wasn't like the team sort of was like, hey, man, we blew this together, but let's stay together and give it another crack next season. Because, if you remember the Miami Heat, the first season with LeBron and Wade and Bosh, they were up 2-1 on the Mavericks and lost in 6, but they got back the next 2 seasons and were totally dominant. Well, the Clippers, it felt like then it was like, oh man, they just fell apart at the seams and never turned it around from there. And, this current team and this current stretch, I wanted to bring this up as well before I forgot to, but of the 5 victories, let's take out tonight's against Philadelphia, but they've beaten the Jazz, okay, no big one there. They beat the Warriors, one of the hottest teams. They've beaten the Magic, who damn well is a very good team for what they did to the Lakers the other night. And then they thumped the Kings as well. So, they're in a good spot. They play Boston next in Boston. Then they got Washington and Minnesota before they play the Nuggets. So they could definitely pick up another couple of wins. I mean, I think Boston's going to be tough for them, but the Wizards is an almost certain win. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves, I mean, they dropped one here to the Celtics tonight. They're only 500 team. I think they're in a bit of trouble too. So, things right now for the Clippers is like maybe it's just better to dismiss them at the start of the season rather than build them up and give them any sort of chance at being a team to watch out for in the West.
I feel like also this is what we're going to see from teams in the West, right? Where there's a lot more parity, there's a lot more mediocrity, and when teams have it going and they're clicking, they'll look really good because they'll have the talent to be able to compete in the Western Conference. And then, depending on the matchup or depending on injuries or depending on other situational things that pop up, that's when you'll start to see, oh, that's right. The Clippers, they may have won 5 in a row. They could drop 2 in a row, and the Golden State Warriors looked like they were world beaters at the beginning of the season. Oh yeah, they lost to these Clippers that we're talking about. And the Lakers opened up the season 3-0 and then they immediately dropped, they only won 1 out of the next 5. And so it's just like, I think matchups are really going to matter in the Western Conference, and whether or not you take advantage of those stretches when you have a bunch of beatable teams lined up, how well you execute during those stretches, I think, is really going to define how a lot of these seasons go in the seeding at the end of the season.
Yeah, well, that's right. And again, I think there's clear sort of hierarchy in that team. And guys like Norm Powell, as I mentioned earlier, he just loves being that role player where he knows he's going to get a ton of shots. And he's just been thriving in that role. And I think that's the thing with the Clippers is like, all right, let's just see if we can wind the clock back here with Harden and get him back to his Rockets days where he basically decides every possession on offense. But if you have are surrounded by the right players, it can be effective during the regular season. I also am not convinced that they've got enough in the playoffs, certainly to get anywhere beyond the first round. But that's just not something they need to even care about right now. It's just enjoy the run while they can and see if they can sort of creep up on a few teams, especially, again, as I mentioned, someone like the Timberwolves, really are still struggling to sort of find their identity since the big trade, losing Karl Anthony Towns. They've been probably one of the more disappointing teams right now at 8-8 in this early part of the season.
Yep. Yeah. And then, it's kind of almost like the other end of the talent spectrum, right? Where the Phoenix Suns and yes, they're on the other end of the talent spectrum, but exactly what I just talked about here with how it's going to go in the Western Conference. So far this season, Leigh, they won their opener against the Clippers in LA. That was an overtime win. Then they lost their next one there to the Lakers. And then they rip off 6 in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row.
Yeah.
Then KD gets hurt. And then now they've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of their last 7. So it's just like this roller coaster type of existence here for the Suns. A lot of it obviously is going to have to do with KD. And when you have that 3-star model, you can't have stars miss time because there's too much invested in those stars to have the organizational depth that we just talked about here with the Clippers. But does it concern you the extent to which they have looked lost without KD?
Well, it's on the defensive end. That's really where they've been their weakest. Yeah, they've given up around approximately 10 points a game more since he's been out. Beal's missed some time as well, and I saw a scrum from either today or yesterday it was with Mike Budenholzer, and Beal and Durant are expected to be back on Tuesday night. They got through a full practice, and so
of course you play the Lakers.
Yeah, you could just sort of feel that sigh of relief on Budenholzer's face because they haven't, like they got off to such a hot start, and it's one of those weird teams coming into the season where we were like, we've seen them do okay in the regular season, but they just got nowhere near enough defensive depth in the playoffs. But this season things were going much better. But yeah, without KD, and KD is one of those players, like he's not a rim protector, he's not like a center, but he's very good at just holding his position and making it difficult. Yeah. You can't have him. I remember in Brooklyn, he was for a while their sort of center, their biggest defender, and that's just not what you need from him. You just need him to be able to, help out, but not be your primary rim protector there. So they're going to get him back, and that's the thing. Like the Suns just got off to that great start, but then you take certainly the best player, and then maybe the third best player off the team. It's going to make a big difference, but. Yeah, Suns and Lakers back out. It's going to be interesting to see really what happens there because I know, again, we'll get to the Lakers a little bit later on. But after a good little patch there, they've had a couple of stinkers at home. So they need a good victory here, and it'd be good to get one against a rival like KD.
So in Lakers Twitter, there's this theory that every player gets healthy when the Lakers are on the docket. And, just so far this season, we're off to a great start in that respect where Jokic returns just in time to play the Lakers. And then now KD and Beal are apparently ready to go Tuesday against the Lakers. It's I don't know how much I buy it necessarily, but it is certainly a talking point. And it's something that I've heard that the Lakers kind of like begrudgingly acknowledge too. It's like, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, listen, here's a wild conspiracy theory. Do you believe in the basketball gods?
Yeah. Yes.
You do? Well, I remember
they're who I pray to.
Well, I remember Shaq in his prime Lakers days was always like, if I'm hurt, I'm rehabbing on company time. I'm not doing it in my summertime. So maybe the basketball gods were like, okay, this is because Shaq would never work out in the off season. He always got himself into shape during the season. So now
the Celtics or one of the other 17 teams Shaq played for, like.
Well, that's that was prime Shaq where he was just he was a beast, and but I remember him sort of saying he's like, man, I got hurt on company time, I'm going to get better on company time, and it's like, okay, maybe the gods were paying attention, and now they're making the other Lakers pay for it. I mean, well, I guess LeBron played with Shaq, didn't he? I mean, that's crazy to think. Actually, LeBron had at least one season in Cleveland. It was only one, I think it was. But no one else, no one else almost in the NBA would have played with Shaq, would they? I mean, Mike Conley, Al Horford, those guys,
No.
KD, of course. I mean, but,
that late in his career,
Boston.
he would have played in Boston and Cleveland.
The
ones that became memes. So, Yeah, I don't think like there are certainly no Celtics left over from that time,
No.
nor players from those Celtics. So yeah, I think it's just LeBron. I mean, only LeBron is in his
Yeah.
22nd year, or whatever it is. So
Yeah,
you have
it's
that.
amazing though when it covers that, because that was it when he went there to get. I remember get a ring for the king. That was the whole thing. But
Yeah.
oh man, he was washed then bad. He
Well, I'll never forget this. I remember Tim Legler was doing an ESPN like stand up. They were analyzing, Shaq had just been traded or signed or whatever it was, however he got to Cleveland. And they asked Legs, like, all right, how do you think this is going to go? And he goes, well, you see the basket there? That's how LeBron prefers to score. He likes to drive to the basket. He likes to get into the paint. He likes to, cave in the defense by, force of will. Well, let's put Shaq there. And they actually grabbed like a big sticker of Shaq and put him in the middle. He's like, that complicates that.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean,
and it was 100% true.
Yeah.
Well,
they were going to trade for him. I remember the season before at the deadline, I think with who were they going to give up? I can't remember, but they couldn't get it done. And then I think he got traded in the end. Yeah. The following season, but it was a bit rough watching him out there. He was clearly not the Shaq they were hoping they would get. It's like that Klay Thompson impersonator. That's the sort of they got the Shaq version of that.
Yeah. I couldn't even imagine how big a person would have to be like the Shaq impersonator.
Shaq impersonator, yeah. Yeah, God, he's a beast, man.
The next story here on the docket is a tough one where Fred VanVleet lost his ever-loving mind on the officials in their recent game, I think Saturday night, and called each referee, I don't like to use this term, so the B word, individually, and then singled out the referee who threw him out of the game, kind of nicked his face a little bit.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a hit. It wasn't a push. It was certainly malicious, but it wasn't dangerous at all. And then walked off of the court after being, again, ejected. Kind of a weird, somewhat frustrating start to the season for him. There's a lot of conversation in Houston as to whether or not Houston should be trying to get their younger guys some more minutes and not playing Fred VanVleet so much. Obviously signed a really big contract in there in Houston. Had a good year last year. It was a big part of why Houston was kind of surprising last season. So far this year, really frustrated. I think it all boiled over here. How long is I don't even know how long when we'll see him again.
I think he deserves at least 4 or 5 games for that. I think it was really unnecessary. It was really aggressive, really offensive. The language, the tone, and then you're right. I don't think he actually made contact with the ref, but it was because the ref took evasive action. He knew that finger was coming to his face, and so he dodged it. And so, again, we see players, they get upset, they get frustrated. The call that he was upset at, first off, was unwarranted anyway. He was trying to draw contact on the 3-point shot there at the end of the game to get a 4-point play, or at least get to the free throw line against the Blazers. It was that offensive flop where he went into the opponent and didn't get it. And then on the next play, he just barged through. I think it was Smith. I think he went through, and they called him rightfully for an offensive foul. And that's when he just unloaded on the refs. And, it's hard to respect a guy, I think, in that situation when he just completely, loses his mind and just makes it even worse, that situation. Understand the frustration, and again, there's some talk about him and his spot there in Houston, but to react like that was completely unnecessary. And I definitely think he's getting multiple games. It's hard to know exactly which way the NBA is going to go on this, and they're probably going to give him only 2 or 3 games, but I think it just warranted more because it just looked really ugly. It was really bad look for Fred VanVleet. And even the Houston Rockets TV commentators, you could tell they were like, whoa, hang on, man, this is a bit too much here. So anytime you've got your hometown commentators sort of being like, this is getting out of hand, that's when you know it's serious. And I just think it's bad. And that one where he did get right in the ref's face, I don't remember the ref's name. You can't do that. If you're going to just pop off from 20 feet away, fine, say whatever you want. But it becomes a different level, I think, when you really get that close and make it so personal. And it becomes kind of, just an ugly incident for not just him, but for the whole team there in Houston.
While you were talking, I actually went and grabbed the clip and removed the audio for licensing purposes and stuff. But you can see here, he's already spoken to one, the two other referees, and as he walks by, I don't even know what he was trying to do.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, again, like, you're getting ejected there anyway. Have a few little words, whatever, that's fine. But that aggressive finger in the face, that just puts it in a different class for me. And I think he deserves a fairly big whack. He'll get, he'll get a fine because he'll miss time for the games. He'll be suspended without pay, but that doesn't matter when you sign what his contract was. It makes no difference there. But you need to send a message and say, like, you can't behave like that. I mean, especially when the refs were not in the wrong for those last two calls there. The refs got the calls right. And so I think that's what makes it even worse. That's just the frustration of losing to a team like Portland, who are not considered to be a strong team. They've had a couple of nice wins this season, actually, but they lose at home to a team they should beat. And he just, he just goes ballistic on them. And I think a veteran of his experience knows much better than that. And I think the league is going to come down on him pretty heavy.
So far this season, Fred VanVleet is shooting 39.4% from the field. He is shooting 30.5% from three-point range. Even his free throw shooting is down. He's only shooting 78% from there. He's only averaging, again, the I think it's like 14 and a half points per game. Remember, the Rockets drafted a player at his position in Reed Shepherd. And there's enough after watching. I mean, the sample size is getting kind of big. It's getting almost too big to ignore as the Rockets have played. He's played in 17 games. That's almost a quarter of the season that has gone by now, and he's looked like this. And now it does help him here, I think, that the Rockets are still in the thick of it. They're the 3 seed right now at 12-6. So they've won despite Fred VanVleet playing as poorly as he has. And I think that's one of the things that will keep him playing a little bit more. But I don't blame Rockets fans for being like, "Hey, Reed is pretty dang good.
Yeah,
like we can we get a little bit more of a look at this guy?" The tough thing with those two is that they're both so small that they can't play together.
Yeah.
They're both listed at like 6 foot or so. Fred VanVleet is clearly shorter than 6 foot. And on the season, though, you have Reed Shepherd. He's averaging 12 and a half points a game. He's shooting, again, as a rookie, similar splits, 39% from the field, 38.5% from three-point range, only a couple of attempts per game there for him. I can understand the frustration there. How do you think this plays out? Like, do you think at some point the Rockets look to maybe move Fred VanVleet? He's really expensive, and he isn't.
Yeah.
He's not playing like up to that expectation.
Yeah, but that's
and he's
the
not
problem.
exactly being a leader either with outbursts like this.
No, but all those things you list there just make his trade value really plummet, don't they? Because who's looking for that? I think Fred needs to go and speak to Hubie Brown because Hubie, of course, famously voted him as Finals MVP back in 2019. It would have been a clean sweep, a unanimous one for Kawhi Leonard, but Freddie got in there. I mean, he was great. He was great in the playoffs and he was great in the finals there. But that's the thing. It's funny when you look at him, and I thought he was going to be a really, really good, consistent player for a long time. And he took the money there to go to Houston, and fair enough. You don't begrudge a guy that, but you wonder if it is that situation now with the Rockets where they start to think like, man, we should test the market anyway and see what is out there for him, because he's not necessarily a piece they need going forward. With some of their other guys, Şengün, Jalen Green, that's kind of the future of the team here. And if Fred isn't going to be a leader and someone who they can really rely on, then they probably should test it out. But right now is not the time, I don't think, just because plenty of teams would take him. I don't think there's a question about that, but it's just how much anyone would be prepared to give up for him right now, because their contract is pretty juicy, but it won't be as bad in the following seasons when that new TV money kicks in.
Yep. All right. The final NBA centric headline that we got to talk about here. Jokic, as we mentioned earlier, returned to the court, and while he was gone, there was this kind of uptick in, Anthony Davis looks like he's playing like an MVP. Remember, the Lakers had won like 6 or 7 in a row. They, AD was an absolute monster on both ends of the court. I don't think Jokic cares one way or another. I saw a really funny video the other day where somebody was impersonating Jokic and he called MVPs like employee of the year awards. Like he just so clearly looks at this as just a job.
Yeah.
But he returns to the court, and here's his line. Now, he didn't play the whole game because it was a blowout there at the end. Jokic, no, he did play 37 minutes. He got 12 of 20 from the field, 3 of 7 from three-point range. For some reason now he's like the greatest shooter ever. Now he goes 7 of 8 from the free throw line, grabs 13 boards, 8 assists, scored, 34 points. Leigh, he was a plus 39 in the game.
Hey, he didn't get a triple-double, so you figured out a way to stop him from just that average of his to be averaging a triple-double every game. So that's a plus there.
Obviously, he sucks.
But those
we talked about Fred VanVleet. Maybe the Nuggets should trade Jokic for not getting that triple-double.
Those 3-pointers he hit, though, the Lakers, I mean, Davis on one of them certainly was just kind of like, I'll give him that. I mean, no, you can't do that at all. The first half was quite. In fact, the Lakers, I think, led at halftime, but it was that third quarter where they just completely dominated. And yeah, I mean, the Lakers had won 5 in a row. They dropped that heartbreaker, of course, to the Magic a couple of nights earlier than that, with a big step back from Franz when after AD missed those free throws. But that's one of those games you can go, okay, maybe a couple of things went the Magic way. This is the team that's knocked the Lakers out the last 2 seasons, and you want to see some progress. You want to see some movement there. You want to see what JJ Redick is going to do differently to, at least give some real hope that the Lakers can match the Nuggets, because, they may not have to face them in the playoffs, but if they do, from what you saw there last night, it's got to be demoralizing to think that the Lakers can beat this team 4 times in a row. Because the other thing is, I mean, Jokic last night, it wasn't like he just went out there and absolutely, destroyed the Lakers from start to finish. He just kind of picked them apart there in the third quarter, got some chances, and sort of, really put the game out of reach. It wasn't like that was a sort of all-time performance from Jokic. Again, based on the season he's having, it was one of his more moderate games. So yeah, I think for the Lakers, after that good little burst they had, these last couple of losses of sort of probably, if there's such a thing as good losses, I think at least these do sort of bring them back down to earth somewhat. We were all enjoying the Dalton Connect surge there, but obviously, again, you can't really rely on a rookie to give you that sort of performance every night. You just need something to show that, hey, things are going to be different against the Nuggets this season, but so far they're not at all.
So I have a theory so the Nuggets have beaten the Lakers 13 out of the last 14 times the two teams have played. Jokic just absolutely owns the matchup. Absolutely. Like AD will sometimes have good counting stats there, but the impact is off the charts, where Jokic is clearly the best player on the court. And I guess the running theory I have is that Jokic is such a smart basketball player. I think he belongs in that conversation just in that regard with LeBron, with Steve Nash, with Magic, like some of the greatest thinkers of the basketball, the sport of basketball. And when you have a player as smart and as gifted as Jokic is, you can't give him the same look over and over and over and over again. You have to throw different pitches. You have to throw different punches. You have to be ready for counter punches. You have to be ready to roll with punches. You got to be. It's just
maybe they should just punch him. Maybe they haven't
work for
tried it.
Dwight. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's in the 2019-2020 Western Conference Finals there where the Lakers beat the Nuggets. That's essentially what Dwight was doing, was just beating the crap out of him. And it's working. But so and I think now, so the Lakers, they trade for Russell Westbrook and fall out of any kind of playoff relevancy. So he didn't have to worry about that iteration of the Lakers. They sucked. It was just whatever. Then the Lakers trade Russell Westbrook, and then they see Jokic in the Western Conference Finals. And over the course of a 4-game series, now the Lakers did throw the one curveball of putting Rui on him, allowing AD to be the help side defender, where he's probably his best and most impactful on defense.
Mm-hmm.
It worked for like 4 possessions or so. It worked well enough that Mike Malone was asked about it after the game. Then the Lakers went back to it, and Jokic crushed it. Yeah. And then at the beginning of the next season, they play again, and they throw Rui on Jokic, and Jokic crushes it. And like, if you think about, over the course of a game or over the course of a series, you keep on giving the guy, the same looks, he's going to figure it out. Well, the Lakers have shown him this core, this like group of talent now for 2.5 years. It's the same group that he swept in the Western Conference Finals. It's the same group that he gentleman swept in last year's first round. Now that he sees it again, and of course he just walks, he's like, oh, it's the same. You're the same guys?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And he just dominates. And like last night was masterful. It like you said, it didn't look, as overwhelmed, but it sure as hell felt like it. Yeah. And that's just how it is. He stepped onto the court, and it was an obliteration from start to finish. And poor Anthony Davis, Jokic isn't known as a defender, but over the course of the game, AD's attempts kept getting further and further and further from the basket because Jokic was just beating him to spots. He was beating him. Like, it was just, AD had no idea what to do with Jokic last night. And we're seeing an all-time great player maybe having the best season he's ever had. Yeah,
well, I think so statistically anyway. And I think what you said off the top is right. It's the IQ that just sets him apart because, he's not the most athletic in terms of the fastest or can jump the highest or anything like that. But he just knows where to be. He knows when to make the right pass. And, the thing is, is that there's no one out there that really can stop him anyway. So even if the Lakers decided, let's go and target this player or whatever, Jokic just sees who's defending him and figures out a way to just sort of, score and maneuver his body. And he's got the little teardrops, he's got the little floaters, and then you give him any room, he's going to knock it down. But he's also such a willing passer as well. Like, anytime you throw a double at him, he's never looking to score. He's like, great, who do I find that's open? And they're doing this without actually Aaron Gordon, who's also been really effective against the Lakers. So, that is one of those situations where, he was even shorthanded himself last night in terms of options. But, for Anthony Davis, it's hard because if you look at them, on paper, physically, Davis is, longer, he's more athletic, he's got nice range on his jump shot, but he just can't seem to rattle Jokic and get him to feel uncomfortable. And so, no. There's no, you double him, like I say, he's going to make the pass. That's fine. One-on-one, he's going to just hose anybody who goes on him. And Rui can try, but it's like, you're going to put Rui on me? Fine. I'll just eat out on this all day. So it's tough. I think for Redick, he needs Jamal Murray to not hit shots. He needs Porter Jr. to not hit shots. But those guys both seem, you mentioned, in the last 13 games, the Nuggets have won 12, and 2 of those were on buzzer beaters by Jamal Murray in the playoffs last season. So the Lakers were close, but even when they're close, it still feels like it goes the Nuggets' way. So, some real questions there for how the Lakers address this. Certainly going in, there's still some time here before the trade deadline, but even if, again, like, who is that player? Who is the one they can get that can really help them deal with Jokic? Because they can't do it right now, and it doesn't matter sort of the game that LeBron has or anyone else has. it feels like Jokic at the end of the day is just going to handle it. I'm sure you saw that thing at the end of the third quarter there, the full court volleyball slap.
Gosh. Yeah.
I mean, how he was able to generate the power from that to even get it that close. And you hear Bill McDonald and
Stu Lance. Yeah.
on the call there, they sort of go, "Oh, Jokic, look at this," and then he's like, "Oh my God!" Like they thought it was going in, and it didn't miss by a mile there. So that's great. But look, Jokic for me is still so much fun to watch because even though he's been so good, he's done everything. Whenever you watch him, it's like, man, he's always going to do something I've never seen, even though it feels like you've seen it before. And he's able to do all that stuff, and he's incredibly fun to watch. And when I rewatched that game this morning in the first half, I'm like, yeah, okay, Lakers are there, and then it's just like, my God, it went from the Lakers in a pretty good position to like, this is just now a complete blowout, and there was no real counterpunch there, as you alluded to earlier.
It was a 50-17 run that the Nuggets went on. You can call timeouts, you can go to quarter breaks, you could start playing football. It did not matter. The Nuggets were just a better team. And you mentioned like what the Lakers can do in terms of personnel to give themselves a better shot. They could go back in time and never trade for Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Like you could go back in time and don't let Alex Caruso walk out the door. Don't trade KCP and Kuz for Russell Westbrook. Don't give up the first round pick in that thing too. Don't think the THT was going to be better at basketball than Alex Caruso.
Yeah.
There's so many mistakes that have a team arrive where they currently reside, and now it's a matter of can they do enough to make it competitive, because that from the third quarter on, basically halftime started and it was just not a competitive basketball game. And I do think that if the Lakers they don't right now they have Rui, who is like a good offensive wing, but not really good defensively. They have Vando, who is good on the defensive side, but non-existent on the offensive side. They need a two-way wing. They need they need more athleticism on the perimeter, and they need some rule changes. Like they,
that's it.
They need the league to not be able to just absolutely. It's like, did you ever watch The Good Place?
Oh yeah. Ted Danson.
It has one of my favorite lines in the history of TV where they ask the guy, is like, they ask him about his Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's like, look, all we need is a better offense, a better defense, and a couple of rule changes, and we'll be right there for a Super Bowl. That's what it would take for the Lakers to beat Jokic.
You think
playing I don't know. I don't even know.
That's the thing, though. Like
everything,
because that's the thing. The weakness that you're looking for just doesn't really exist. Because it's like if you said to him, "Okay, you can only take 5 shots tonight," he's like, "And you're going to win." He'd be like, "Fine, I don't care." He's not out there stassing his stats. He's just out there basically taking whatever the defense gives him, and he's just feasting on all of it. But what did you think of Westbrook last night?
That's his superpower. That's the thing that is so incredible about him, is that he does not care.
Yeah.
Like the thing that gets NBA superstars or even professional superstars in trouble is that winning isn't necessarily enough.
Yeah.
Winning has to occur on their terms to a certain extent.
For sure.
With Jokic, he does not care. It's just do I need to take 5 shots? Okay, I'll do that. Do I need to take 30 shots? Okay, I'll do that. Do I need to hustle back? Because his thing with AD is I'll just beat him down the court every time.
Yeah.
Look at those two human beings side by side, and you tell me who would have a harder time running down a basketball court.
I know.
For some reason, it's the guy who looks like an Avenger.
Yeah,
It's just incredible to watch Jokic figure out the sport of basketball. And I really think his superpower going up against everybody else that he competes with is he does not care how he beats you, so long as he does.
Yeah. And that, I mentioned Westbrook there because he had a near triple-double in his return. He seemed to enjoy himself last night. Maybe if they traded for that Westbrook, things would have been different.
Yeah.
But again, the point I bring him up is because he's actually, he was someone who really showed his weakness that he couldn't overcome that. He wanted to win on his terms, and he wanted to win the way he was going. And teams in the playoffs are like, shoot all you want, man. You shoot all you want. And he would always fall into that trap. And that's why he's gone from being, a 30-point triple-double man there in OKC and MVP, but had no significant playoff success after after that 2012 season, because he kept on falling for the same stuff again, and he wouldn't change his game, and he wanted to score all the points. And, that's why he ended up going to Houston and Washington and, the Lakers and the Clippers. And now he finds himself in Denver. And, it's been a bit of a shaky start there for him, but he started to at least, I think, accept like, okay, maybe I do have to change. And that's the thing with Jokic is almost already at that stage of his career where he's like, I don't care about the MVPs. I don't care about the points or anything. I just want to win. That sort of that way that he plays just makes it so hard for the Lakers and most teams to figure out a way to stop him, because when you've got the big, long, lanky defender like Gobert, that causes him no problems either. It's really more if Jokic just sort of gets in his own way a little bit, but that almost never happens.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch somebody, just understand a sport the way that he does.
Yeah.
He understands what to do with what defenses and what defenses are going to be trying to do. It's incredible. It's incredible to watch this guy look like, some dude who you would see at a YMCA. He looks like he's incapable of breathing through his nose, and he's just dominating the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge football fan. I don't really follow the game, or I don't follow it at all. I don't understand too much about it. But I wonder about him as a quarterback, with his ability to land that ball where he wants, at his height, his agility, his ability to, again, not get pinned down by defenders and that. And I mean, imagine what he could do with a football in his hands, as far as how accurate he could be with his passes and his ability to do everything. It'd be fascinating to see a guy at that height, with his big hands. And again,
good luck tackling him too.
Oh, exactly. Even if you did try to bring him down, he'd still sort of slip and slide his way out of those tackles and still hit the target. So, he's incredible.
Well, after that play that he made the other night, or the attempt that he had at the end of that, and at the end of the half, I want to see him box.
Yeah. Yeah.
He hit the ball 94 feet.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of want to see how that would go.
Did you also see against the Mavericks? They lost the game, but it was on the last possession or so when it was Westbrook who missed the free throw on purpose. And for the Mavericks, I think it was Derek Lively was basically hugging him to try to prevent him from getting the ball. He sort of slipped off him. He got the ball, fired it straight to Murray, who hit the three. Like, the execution was just incredibly perfect. But again, like, that is a guy who's like, I'm literally just going to tackle this guy. And he wasn't able to still stop him from getting the ball, even though he had position and he was clearly, focused on doing that. And he still couldn't stop Jokic from affecting the game. Oddly enough, they lost that game. But the point being that, Jokic just is never out of a possession if he wants to be in it.
Yeah, I hate him. All right. I love watching him, but against 28 other teams, I guess it would be.
Yeah.
But he just owns the Lakers, and I think a lot of it has to do with if the Lakers are going to win, it has to be a certain way, and he just makes it so that they cannot win that way.
Yes.
All right, Leigh, that I think is going to do it here for our NBA stories for this weekend.
Yeah.
But now. A quick programming reminder. Again, Thursday is Thanksgiving, so there will not be a passport on Thanksgiving this week. However, if enough stuff happens, and depending on Leigh and my plan, I know the Lakers play that night too. But I think if we don't have enough going on during the day, the plan is to record on Wednesday instead of Thursday this week. So what do we have in store for us on Wednesday?
Yeah, well, I'm actually going back to Paris because the court that I played at, Pigalle du Perret, last year has been given a facelift, and it is the same person, Stéphane Ashpool, who and his team who painted this. And so I wasn't there. This is my friend Louis Allen, who was at the run that I had in Paris last season. We got talking and I said, oh man, see if you can go and shoot some stuff. And he went and shot some incredible stuff there with his drone. So I'm going to talk about it. And also I'm going to give away a little bit of the game here, but we've talked so much about Jokic. Well, while he was there filming, there was this guy from Thailand who was just there and they started talking. And this guy calls himself the Thai Jokic. And I've seen a couple of highlights and I'm like, oh, okay, this dude is legit. So I'm working on getting a few more highlights of the Thai Jokic. But yeah, otherwise we'll talk about the Pigalle renovation, the redo, the repaint, the history of that court, and show it off again because it is a beautiful court. And this latest paint job is spectacular. So excited for what we might have here on Wednesday. If we don't do it on Wednesday, we'll just do it next Thursday anyway.
Yeah. Reminds me of Fruit Stripe. First inclination was the old bubblegum Fruit Stripe. You know, the gum lasted, the flavor lasted in that thing for like, I don't know, 3 chews. And then it tasted terrible.
Yeah.
But those 3 chews were incredible.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly as a kid.
Did you have Hubba Bubba over here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, right. Because that was what we had as well in Australia. And it was the same. It was I used to love the grape bubble gum, but 4 or 5 chews in, it was the juiciest, it was like, oh my God, this is incredible.
And then it felt hard for some reason.
Yeah. And then it was just like, that's taste. Now I'm just chewing nothing.
Yeah. So the one that I always, the bubble gum I always remember is when I played baseball. For some reason, like they wanted to train kids to be interested in tobacco products really, really early. So yeah. So like they had, they would sell fake cigarettes at like the snack shack, and they sold what was called Big League Chew, which like came in a bag that looked like, chaw. It looked like chewing tobacco, and you got it out of the thing just like you would chewing tobacco. But it always like got bigger,
right?
Like they made it look like, and so like you would grab a scoop of it, you would think like, oh, that's a decent size or whatever, and you would throw it, and then now you would look out at this team of like youth baseball players. We're all like 10 years old, and it looked like we have a food depth. It's just like, what were we doing?
Oh man, that's straight out of The Simpsons. That like.
Like, I'm looking back on it now, I was like, that was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And then like there's not even like for the future risks of getting kids interested in tobacco products, but like the choking hazard, because you would have like it would be like a whole ass thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was fun. All right.
Gross. Yeah. Anyway. We'll be back in Paris. Yeah.
From that conversation to Sweet Perry. That is going to do it here for this episode of the Basketball Passport Pod. These things are absolutely flying by, having an absolute blast doing them. I hope you guys are having as much fun watching and listening as we're having making them. A quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your pods. If you're listening to this in its audio form, if you guys are watching live right now, please hit that like button and that subscribe button. If you guys are watching on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@basketballpassport. And if you guys want to send us an email, nice and easy to remember right here at basketballpassportpod at gmail. No at the beginning of it. There could be. I don't know.
It may as well, but yeah, I mean.
basketballpassportpod at gmail.com is where you could hit us up there, and we will get to those as they come in. But until potentially Wednesday, I am Anthony Irwin. That was Leigh Ellis. This has been Basketball Passport. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. If we don't talk to you guys between now and Thanksgiving, please have a nice, safe holiday, and we will see you guys and talk to you guys whenever we do.